Welcome back to the Morning Skate Podcast. I am your host, DJ Mitchell, here with Matt Moody to go over the roadmap to success in fantasy. Here we go. Welcome, Mr. Matt Moody. Let me unmute myself. How are you doing on this beautiful Tuesday night?
I'm doing well. I was confused. I was like, "Uh-oh, did I silence my sound?" But no, just you off to a strong start as always.
You love to see it, and you simply would hate to see anything else. I am going to post this on Twitter. You want to post it on Discord? I don't have it open right now. Get some people in here.
I don't
was kind
know
of
how to
rushing to
the
get ready
link.
because I was getting texts about going to a Sabres game in November, and I was figuring that out. And then I was like, oh, I have 10 minutes to get on stream, and the Sabres are going to suck for a long time, so I can worry about that later.
Yeah, story checks out.
Story does check out. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to continue. If you don't follow me on Twitter, I'd be absolutely perplexed of the three people in here if none of you follow me on Twitter. But I will continue to post any updates. I'm going to just try every week at least, or every few days, to post a list of updates from training camp. We got some interesting news today. Nothing insane. Edmonton with Skinner, Draisaitl, and Arvidsson as a line, and then McDavid with Nugent Hopkins on his wing, and obviously Zach Hyman. That was probably the biggest note of the day. Not shocking by any stretch of the imagination, but certainly something to keep an eye on, especially for people that were sort of like, I took McDavid, now I got to jam Jeff Skinner. And it's like, well, not so fast, my friend. Keep an eye on it, though. It's the optional skating right now. All of these are optional. Most training camps kick off this tomorrow or Thursday. Most Thursday.
Yeah,
and most are prospect only, but not all of them.
Yeah, I gotta say, the Edmonton stuff really doesn't matter to me because it's going to take an injury for Skinner or Arvidsson to pay off their tags. Honestly, I think like it's just so hard for power play 2 guys to be relevant. Like even Lafreniere, who was just like an alpha stud last year, one of the best 5-on-5 players in the league. Yeah, he helped you win a championship because he had a 5-game week that he went bananas for. That was a finals play for sure. But I'll take another quick look, but I don't think he was all that useful in the regular season as far as like advancement rate and whatnot. And I imagine a lot of that effect is because he was paired with Artemi Panarin, who obviously had a dominant season and was the power play guy. And it's very tough to disentangle, Panarin from Lafreniere and so on. And that just to me feels like the perfect case. That's like the best case scenario if you're drafting a guy who's just frankly not on the top power play. So it's interesting. Like I think I like Draisaitl a little bit less if he's not going to be with, or if he's going to be with 2 guys who aren't all that good defensively. Arvidsson could be, but I don't know if I trust. I don't know if I trust him yet at this point, given the injury history and everything else. Like he's had some really good defensive players to play with in his career, and Draisaitl is not one of them. So. Yeah, it's interesting, but I don't know if I'm reading too much into it for like a best puck standpoint. You're muted again.
That seems, I didn't click any buttons, but everything will be on Twitter if you want to follow me, etc. And no other big news. Ottawa, it's all on there. I mean, Ottawa said some stuff. It is kind of the time of the year where everyone is healthier than they are. They've had it all the off season, so everyone's all of a sudden, and we hear about these injuries we never knew about. Shabbat's like, yeah, my wrist was ruined for 2 years, and I finally fixed it. And it's like, what were you doing for 2 years, my friend? But what are you going to do?
Yeah, I am.
So yeah, we got
just from my perspective, the places that I'm actually interested in like watching out for news on. Anaheim, I think, is far and away my most intrigue, just because the Cutter Gauthier situation, because everyone is so inexpensive there, it really doesn't matter. Like whoever's seemingly getting the alpha role, both forward and D wise. They should be able to rise up the board over the next month. Now, who knows if we're going to get, good clarity on that situation, but like I am interested to track that through the preseason. Dallas is a big one just because, there's the Wyatt Johnston situation. Joe Pavelski's gone, meaning there's a wide open power play and top line role. It could be Stankoven, it could be Johnston, it could be a number of players. I wouldn't be surprised to see Matt Duchene just step into the top power play this year. So that's probably number 2. And then number 3, I think, is Florida, mostly due to the fact that it feels like Barkov, Reinhart, Kachuk, Verhage are set at forward. But then the D situation, if it's Forsling on the power play 1 all training camp, that's a smash. If they started off with Boakvist on the point, it's a pretty big indicator that, yeah, they'll use Forsling as necessary on the power play, but they're not, they're not committing to him as like their pure number 1, like obviously you don't need him to be Roman Yossi, but like, they're not committing to him being that sort of player for them this year. So those are 3 situations that I've, been thinking in my head. I need to go check as soon as we get that sort of information. But yeah, there's obviously every team is somewhat interesting.
Yeah, we'll get to the chat here. We have some stuff going off. First off, we have some Sabres. I just recorded a show over the weekend that just went live today, a full 45-minute Sabres preview. I think I made some decent points about the team in general and what they're going to look like. And yeah, I have a bet on Lindy Ruff. So if anyone tailing, newbies out here, he has some questions in general. Maybe we can dive in on this a little bit. We'd love to hear your thoughts on guys like Broberg. I mean, I'm going to be probably a 0 on Broberg at this point. Don't think it's overtly necessary to assume at this point. It could impact Falk a little bit, but I don't really see him taking over that role much. Jenner, I'm kind of out on, but I could be roped back in. I just think in general, I'm sort of staying at arm's length on Columbus. Just going to take Werenski if he falls, but that's about it right now. Maybe a little Marchenko.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on those 2 guys to start, and we'll get to the rest?
Yeah, I mean, we covered this last week, but I think everyone in Columbus got substantially worse, as a result of Johnny Gaudreau just not being there. So, yeah, it's a really gross way to think about things. But yeah, that's just, it's just a blanket loss for every player there. So, Jenner was in consideration for my last pick. I don't think he is anymore. I'd rather just take the pure upside bet on Fantilli that he just becomes an alpha, but like I'm not taking Marchenko, I'm not taking Jenner. I have very little interest in Werenski, to be honest. Like I just don't know how the offense really comes to be.
I know Stankoven's pretty much a wait and see as well, but I know you're out on him. I'm in on him. Like I'm taking shares. I'm mixing it up, seeing what we can do. I bet on the skill and the style, but I do feel like he's a guy that we could look back on and say, like, why did we even consider this? A guy that's just, I guess the reason is because like people are betting on Arvidsson in a similar vacuum of like, well, look at what he could be. And it's like, well, he's not in the top power play. I don't know how he's getting on that top power play. So it'd be tricky. And we'll talk goalies the whole time. I did a lot of that yesterday as well. Anything else on Stankoven? We're waiting on 6, by the way.
Oh, I did not join. No, I don't think I have anything else on Stankoven. If you are fully if you're fully comparing, line shopping for what it's worth, the Calder odds on Stankoven are basically identical to that of Celebrini, Matt Michkov, and Gauthier. So like he's definitely in the mix. I would not, I wouldn't disparage anyone for thinking that he could take that next step. I just personally think it's going to be really hard for him to find that top tier role. Like, there's a good chance he finishes in the top half of the, those guys in the Calder, finishing 2 or 3. But like, I think there's just not a ton of upside versus for someone like Gauthier, there's probably a much better chance he finishes, 4th out of that mix. But I also think there's a world where he is actually their focal point, like all year long. And so I'd rather just take the pure upside swing, I guess, with my 6th or 7th D-man. But like, I do understand that as a prospect, Stankoven has a ton of upside. Like it's sort of tough to distinguish like what that actually means. but I will always side with like the role
I also,
potential versus like just talent.
Yeah, Tom brings up Seattle, and I feel like I talk about Seattle every podcast. They kind of feel like the team that it's like everything in your brain should say like they're worth betting on, and yet I don't know where the bet comes from. I think I'm still sticking with McCann being fine. I can't imagine you're going to say he's just objectively bad, but where do you swing elsewhere? Because if you just type in Seattle, there is one forward that's being drafted regularly, one defenseman that's being drafted regularly, and one goalie. The goalie situation, I can listen to an argument. I'm in on Decord, but I assume one other forward's going to get there.
Yeah, I mean, the reason Seattle's of interest, I think, is because those guys are mostly wingers. Like, I don't see it using a center slot to take a swing on Manny Beniers specifically, but like, Shane Wright could get up into that mix with the right deployment in the preseason. And then obviously, like, Yanni Gord is their third center there. That's not a guy you're interested in. Defensively, I'm pretty in on Vince Dunn, I think, as like a last D man in. I do think that there's a world where he is he continues what he did last year, which he really did look like he was gonna take over that alpha role as Larson sort of aged out. Montour there muddies the waters a good bit, but I also think we're getting a discount, like not just because he's a last round pick, but also because he's just not going in every draft now. So like if he does hit, that's just infinitely more powerful come playoff time. And is the Seattle D-man worth a ton come playoff time? I don't know. So it's not of particular interest, but that's at least one that I could see. Bjorkstrand, Tolvanen, definitely interested in. Eberle, maybe, but it's always going to be tough for me to click on those olds. I'm going to need, a better reason, I think, than just maybe. Yeah, a lot of comments here. Just the Dunn over Montour. Yeah, I mean, I think so. Like Montour is getting drafted every time, like pretty 123 EP. I just don't really get taking him there when John Carlson is essentially tied with him. Sergachev is after him. Like those guys are just straight up better. I don't know. I certainly could be wrong. I have not. These are the sorts of things that like I can give these takes and DJ can have takes, but like we had Jay on last week. I highly urge you to go watch the full thing last week, even if it's just in the podcast form. You don't need to visualize anything we were doing. Obviously support the video too, but like the podcast on the Morningscape pod feed is actually super useful. It's super relevant. A lot of behind the scenes sort of talking, not just puck, but talking like data and how these things are coming together. That's the sort of thing where, okay, Moods is saying this about Vince Dunn, Montour, maybe Montour's not good. Let's see what some projection systems say. How does Montour compare to Carlson, to Sergachev? Pick a guy that you like, maybe that you're taking more of. And if it's like, oh, Montour's, projecting better than those guys, then maybe start mixing them in. Maybe, don't listen to what I say, because I'm sure I have some Brandon Montour. I mean, my DraftKings profile picture is Brandon Montour. Like, I love the guy. So like I'm not saying like, oh, I hate it, but I just prefer other guys. Come to think of it, I guess being asked a question.
Okay. Yeah, we're just about to start, so I'm going to share that. We can continue to answer some of the questions. Actually, which window is best? I think we just
this is completely ridiculous. I've gotten I think 4 or 5 top 5 picks in 40 drafts. Like every time.
Yeah,
like,
I was gonna mention. Yeah, someone asked if we're drafting them. If we're drafting tomorrow, I think Stochastic should be. So we'll probably just follow along with them. I don't like this screen actually. Let's go with this one. Nah, let's go with this one. Okay, wait, a little better.
I don't know why. Stack us on top of each other. Why did he?
Oh. Which one do you like? That? Oh,
yeah,
that one.
Yeah,
that one. That's the right one. Yeah. No, tomorrow, Stochastic, probably 8 p.m. Eastern time.
Yes.
I don't know what
I don't know what you're doing.
I don't know what this means, but I want to learn more. Mo talking crap about me, DJ, today, signed Tickle. I'm interested in hearing more.
No talking crap, he means, and he's probably
Oh,
Tickle my degen in our draft. So let's
there
see
it is. Oh,
did he draft with us last week?
Yeah, he meant no.
Oh, yeah. No,
I don't know. Crap. No, sorry. One screen is frozen. The other screen is working. Okay, we're in now. I'm good. I can actually see everything. Although I put the wrong thing up, but I'm gonna make my pick first. And I'm gonna take one through David Pastrnak at 4. You hate to get 4, but what if Pastrnak is the guy you needed? And then I'm going to fix because I know what's wrong now.
Is DWK and Harry Balls Santa? Harry Balls Anna? I don't know. Are they gonna just mess up the perfect bit here for me?
Hold on. Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry about the whole resharing situation, but it is not zoomed in correctly, and now it is, so we can see it better. I did not have that correct, and I was like, why does it look smaller than normal? Oh, now it's going to pull up that. Okay, now we're good. Now I can see all the screens at once. We are happy. So hold on. Let's take a peek here. Kucherov, then Kaprizov.
Come on.
Angry Panda went Leon.
Come on, just
what are we hoping for here?
You know what I'm hoping for.
Oh,
here.
I know what you're saying. Okay. Yeah, I do. Because we didn't even talk about anything we planned on talking about yet. But that's fine,
we just went right in.
Set it
we
up
just went right
perfectly,
into questions. Yeah.
Yeah, but you know what? That's because we like to service our millions of watchers. We give them all the content and the goods they could possibly handle. And this draft, this is interesting. Kind of going correctly. Okay. Now it's your chance. Okay, Matt goes Matt. Matt takes Matt. Now will Harry Balls ruin what your plan is? And of course, Harry Balls could be in here watching right now and wondering what would be ruining it. So far, far so good. And he does it. He sets you up for the cover boys. The cover boys?
Yes. Yeah, look at the thumbnail, everyone. What if I told you the optimal pairing in the first and second rounds this year was Matthew Tkachuk and William Nylander? Because there is a metric where those two are perfect pairs.
Can I ask another? Let me ask another question. What if I took Austin Matthews and I missed Marner and I got Sam Reinhart?
Doesn't matter.
Okay.
Well, here, let me.
What if I took Marner and Verhaeghe?
There you go. That is perfect. There you go. You nailed it.
Does anyone else want to guess anyone that could fit this?
This came up in our Discord about a week and a half ago. Count MC, friend of the show, Michael, Fantasy Hockey Oracle, I think on Twitter. Should start plugging that because he's actually putting out useful stuff. Yeah.
Yes, he is.
So,
and he rocks it.
He posted in the thing like, hey, I put together this grid from I don't know, some website had the schedule, and so he basically customized it to match the Underdog weeks, week 1 through week 24, based on the whole mid-season break. Last year there are 25 weeks. This week there are 20. This year there are 24, just with the break in the middle of the year considered. And so just to really hone in on exactly what I was eliciting first. You want me to sort of the share thing that I was.
Oh, you have it. Oh,
whoops. Yeah, I can zoom in even more.
I was in the middle of drafting. I didn't notice you took it.
Yeah, I'll mute myself. I took it over. And so obviously you can get every team in this grid. It's he emailed it to me. I'm sure if you ping him in the Discord, he could send this your way. But it got me thinking. We care a lot about the finals, the finals weeks, and for good reason. That's where a lot of the money is going to be made. So, for example, in the finals, there's 4 games for let's call it Nylander because he's on my team in week 1, and only 2 for Tkachuk. But next week, in the final week, there's 4 for Kachuk and 2 for Nylander. So like if you're trying to fill one position, that's an ideal setup. Just thinking through things conceptually. Now, obviously, with wing, there are 2 of them, so like theoretically, both guys could score. It's not as powerful here. Like I tend to think about this more for goalies, just for the season long, or all preseason. I've been thinking about it this way, but it made me think, okay, how can I quantify this imbalance throughout the regular season? And so, I thought I looked up some stuff. I'm like, okay, can I plot it, do this, that, the other thing? Turns out it's a pretty basic code or algorithm or whatever. It's just called Manhattan distance. And it's, imagine you're driving down the streets of Manhattan, you're taking a grid system, you go left one, up one, whatever. So all this is doing is just measuring the distance between 2 teams for the entire course of the season. And so I did the math here just to sort of represent what we're doing. So like in week 1, they both played 3 games. Okay, there's no difference. Week 2, there's 2 games difference, so on and so forth. Just taking the absolute value of these differences. Now, I did all this work for you already. I posted this in the Discord, but basically I summed across all 24 weeks the total Manhattan distance of these teams. And again, you can access this in the Discord. It's just a CSV. If you look up files that I've shared, you can get every pair. I find it interesting at the bottom, like Pittsburgh and St. Louis. There's basically no distancing. You're not getting that yin and yang factor. And if you don't think this matters, I urge you to read the 3rd Best Puck Manifesto, because at the end, I sort of uncovered why I think stacking might be powerful in pairs. And it's not because of the intra-player correlation. It might be because of the schedule-based correlation of just getting your
deck,
teams on separate tracks.
You're up.
Okay. Yep. I'm up. I will take Sidney Crosby because I hate getting stuck with no center. And I feel like I need some more Sid in my life. And so, yeah, so this is all in this Discord. You don't need to take it into account. I don't think there's like a huge loss to be had if you're not thinking through things like this. But like if you're looking for like that next edge to really grind, you can, let's see, do I have it here? Yeah. So like I put something together like this just for myself as I'm drafting, like, okay, top pair, second pair, third pair. I coded all of this. So, if you want to try and steal this, go ahead, but I'm not going to give you everything that I have. But you can pretty easily take the file I had and just ask ChatGPT to like make you some code to do that. But yeah, so that's sort of the genesis of the thumbnail to this episode. DJ, if you want to take the screen share back over and focus on the draft, feel free. But yeah, I think that's an interesting concept.
Yeah. Can I ask?
Yeah, sure.
I'll let you go first. Sorry. I was going to say, what if you had to say like, all right, like the difference between the number, as you said, is all of that. So like, what is this like? Because again, like all of that makes sense. But if you just had to put it like, what is like, I know I want to ask this question. Let me start over. I just stumbled over everything thinking about something else. If you were going to put this into like, I have, a bunch of decisions on the board. Because again, I kind of talked about this yesterday of like, there's a decision tree, which was a big part of my thumbnail yesterday. Like there's a decision tree. Would you say that this is like, I don't know, could you rank a few things and like where this should fit in that order? You know what I mean? Is that too much to ask maybe, or?
Yeah, I don't really think it belongs in the sense of like, oh, like you need to consider, this right after or right before stacks or whatever. Like it sort of feels more like truly like, you used the phrase in the thumbnail, but like a roadmap. Like, I'm sitting here just thinking things before a draft. And it was really interesting to me that Toronto just seems to have the most disbalanced schedule in the NHL, just relative to other teams. I don't know why that is, but like you look at the order, the CSV I shared is ordered by this distance, and of the top 8 pairings, Toronto is in 6 of them. It just means that there are a lot of natural synchronization between Toronto and other teams. So like if you take Joey Wolf, for instance, you're getting Florida's goalie, Colorado's goalie, LA's goalie, all of those goalies, because the onesie positions are where this probably matters the most, you're just getting a lot of those natural gaps being filled in. Versus when you take a team like Pittsburgh or St. Louis, their schedules just seem kind of boring. So they show up a lot at the bottom. And like, I don't know why that is, but it's interesting to see like the stark contrast, I guess, between these situations. And again, I don't know if it matters that much. Like, I'm going to guess you could get away with a Binnington Mrazek pairing, even though they only have a 6 game distance or whatever versus the 22 distance over the course of a season. Because frankly, if both guys have really good years, it's not going to matter, whether they cover for each other. But it feels like it could be sort of like a hidden edge or like just the sort of next frontier to really figure out. I know in NBA, this is a big deal. Just because scoring is so much more predictable in NBA, like it actually does matter. I don't know if anyone in here actually plays NBA like best ball, but like I was eyeballing some ETR stuff, and like Dink is already all over that for this year. And it just sort of, I only saw that today, but I was like, huh, that's interesting, because I sort of arrived at that, posturing thought, in a similar way. So yes, where to rank it at the bottom, of everything we've talked about, I don't think it's the most important thing, but I also think it's the least controllable thing we have until we have, a really sophisticated like auto drafter or something. Like, you're just not going to be able to keep that many variables in your head. So I tend to use it as like, okay, I bet on an early, New Jersey stack. What are the teams that maybe best correlate with New Jersey? And I'll just look for them. If I'm tied between a Philly guy and a Montreal guy, and the Philly guy correlates slightly better, maybe it makes sense to grab that stack later on, so that like I sort of feel a little bit more safe. It's just a way to help break ties, I think, which a lot of things are. There's really no substitute for picking the best players. Like, if you just pick the best players all off season long, nothing you do is going to matter. You could draft 7 centers, but if you have Sam Reinhart as your wing and he scores 11 billion goals like Jay thinks he will, guess what? You're probably going to do, a pretty good job in Best Puck this year.
Okay. Yeah. No, I do like that. And again, I like, honestly, I know this was yesterday talk, but I kind of want to bring this up again too. We can, I guess, transition away from that, if that's all right, because I do think it's really important, and I'm glad it's in the Discord. And again, it's in the description of the video. But yesterday, Matt, can you say this name for me quickly, because I don't want to say it wrong?
The consigliere.
Is it just the G silent? Consigliere. Is that how you say? Okay. Yeah. Correct us if I'm wrong. We talked a little bit about the late center build, and I did go over a couple of those. And in this draft, you kind of, I wouldn't say jumped the gun too much, but you took Crosby, at 35. You kind of said, I don't want to get buried again at center. And I mentioned a little bit of like, yeah, I think this year it's more important not to get buried at center. And here I am getting buried at center. I have pick 69, and everyone knows that's the nicest pick on the board, so I should be fine. But what is going into that thought process of like, I don't want to get buried at center this year? When last year we were sort of like, who cares?
Well, I'll pick, but of course Tage makes it to me after I take Crosby at ADP, thinking, oh, I don't want to get buried. So that's just my lot in life here. Yeah, I would say that my primary, I guess, consideration for that is just looking through the playoff data just made it so clear that even when you stripped McKinnon out of the mix, it's just so much more powerful to get like those super high end scores. And like, if there's a McKinnon, if there's a Matthews, if there's a McDavid that hits, my Dylan Larkin isn't doing a damn thing. Like, Dylan Larkin can have a great season, and it's just not going to matter if in week 21 and 22, McKinnon goes for 70 points per week. Like, it's just so hard for me to see a world where that happens, that like, I know that there's going to be options later, but I want to have that sort of anchor. And I know that at defense, at goalie, at wing, I can feel pretty confident that I can find a true top tier outcome that competes with the highest end guys. Mostly at wing, because there's 2 spots. Like, you can't, Kucherov and Pastrnak aren't both going to be on teams. And if you're saying your second best winger is already down to a Reinhart at the absolute maximum, like I'm okay with saying that. Okay, I don't think I'm going to lose by that substantial of an amount if my team is good enough to advance to the playoffs. Obviously, at D, we know that guys can come up from the back of the pack and literally lead the way. Erik Karlsson's done it. I would say Erik Karlsson could do it again. Like that just sort of makes a lot of sense. Josh Morrissey, those sort of fantasy standouts can come from virtually anywhere. And then goalie, of course, we had a lot of instances last year where you couldn't really have predicted it, but like goalies come out of nowhere. That the best scoring week, I think, was Nico Dawes. So yeah, you're not predictably going to get guys like that, but you can. Versus at center, you need to compete with the behemoth of McDavid, Matthews, McKinnon. Like that to me is why I'm so sort of disappointed, I guess, in myself when I miss out on these elite centers, just because I don't see a world where anyone after Sebastian Aho truly competes with those top tier guys. And Aho is obviously finicky, but like that's sort of where I draw the line.
Yeah, no, interesting name to bring up right now. Maybe would have been quiet for another minute, but I also would be fine if Eriksson Ek or Howe get to me because I just took Brock Besser to go with Quinn Hughes to service the audio listener, and I have Pastrnak, Gensel, Igor Shesterkin, and Alexander Georgiev. And like I mentioned on my last show, when I take Shesterkin, I'm being a bit mindful of one of the next goalies with at least a 7. Not always the next goalie, but one of the goalies with a 7 in their finals column, I am kind of keying in on, or an 8, because he only has 5 in the finals, and Georgiev does fit the 7-7 for the back-to-back final 2 weeks, and that kind of spoke to me. One question we did kind of get, and I don't even know if I want to say it was directly or if it was a little bit tangentially, was surrounding goalies in your chart and kind of mentioning some of the back-to-back stuff. Are you using this for goalies at all, sort of thing? Like this is the mapping. It would make a lot of sense to use it. Are you worried about back-to-backs at all? Or are you going to factor them out?
Yeah, I think it's the most important for goalies in all honesty, because there's no flex. Like there's only one of them. Like I understand the back-to-backs matter in that, you can only project a certain amount of starts. But if you think about things from sort of the inverse perspective of where for skaters, a 4-game week could turn into a 3-game week, or I guess it's not going to turn into a 3-game week. So like, your average or whatever is 4. Maybe for goalies, the average is 3, just because there's no 70-star goalies like Ryan Miller in 2010. Like that just isn't happening in the NHL anymore. So like if the difference is between 3 and 4 between your goalie and between 2 and 3, well, the difference between 2 and 3 is much more relevant than between 3 and 4, because it's, an extra 50% of games versus an extra, 33% of games. So like, I think it matters the most for goalies because those starts are limited. Obviously, there's no way to directly account for the fact that some of these spots that you would play a guy are in a back-to-back situation. So yes, that is a consideration, but it's not something that like sort of dissuades me from like emphasizing it in my, I guess, my selection process, or whatever you want to call the process of sort of mapping out your teams. I'm going to pair Barkov and
What's
Kachuk.
the process for this pick right here?
I wanted Kemper. Kemper goes way early because this is an MSP lobby, of course. But yeah, I mean, Barkov, Kachuk don't really correlate, but it's not the end of the world for me to just get some value there. Shore up center, and I'm now probably just pushing goalie to the next turn because I'll dare the field to take 7 goalies before my next pick. So looking at my options, I think I'm just going to grab Drake Batherson. Feels weird, but I don't really have any reason to take Miro or Morrissey, and wing really falls off the board fast here. Like it gets pretty gross pretty fast, so I'll just keep loading up on wing before picks 110 or so.
All around good stuff. So let's recap your team through the 7th round. You started the Chuck Nylander, as we went into great detail on. You went Crosby, as we mentioned, Matt Boldley, Jarvis, Hill. You just mentioned your last 2 picks of going with Barkov and Batherson. So a 2, 4, 5, 0, 1. None of the goalies got back to you, as you mentioned, so you might be a little bit trying to catch up, understandably. I will be on the clock with the next pick. I have a 1-3-1-2. I kind of went through my team. I went Eriksson Ek over Aho. Aho maybe could have been easier to correlate with something, but I don't really want to guess when Jarvis is off the board and Svechnikov is off the board, so it didn't really matter that much to me. Yeah, I have an interesting debate here. I am going to grab Alexis Lafreniere. Just kind of believe in him at this range. Like I think comparatively to any other winger, he's the best available. I don't mind getting my 4th. Wondering when we'll see him jump on that top power play, because if, like, let's just say, for example, we found out today that Lafreniere was on the top power play over whoever you want to say, where does he move?
Can you repeat the question? I'm not sure I followed.
Like, let's just say, like, we get into camp and maybe there's an injury, let's say to not Panarin or Trocheck. Let's just say, like, it's Zibanejad, for example. And Lafreniere is just cemented on that top power play. Like, is Lafreniere going up to, 50 to 40? Like, what, or is he staying around 60, 70, 80? Like, I was obviously going to move up, but like, well, you know what I mean? Like, that's the knock, right? I mean, that's the knock on
I think you pretty clearly. I think you pretty clearly take Boldy and Timo over him. Yeah, but I could see like Verhaeghe, Bratt, Keller being the right range for that. Like he could probably fit among that glut of players, maybe toward the back, because I do think that the schedule in the finals is deeply scary. It's not that he has one bad week; it's that he's basically worthless unless he has a hat trick in one of those games, because he goes 3 and then 2 in the finals weeks. And I don't think that matters a ton for but if you're trying to break ties between, again, that glut of Verhaeghe, Bratt, Keller, Barzal, Svechnikov, they're all really good players. They all have a pretty substantial wart, in my opinion. Some of the guys, it's their shot rate. The other guys, it's finishing ability. Lafreniere could certainly be a better player than them, but also is a bit less safe because we've not seen him be, the focal point of a team like we have these other guys. So, all that to say, I don't love taking Lafreniere as it is. Like, I just don't really see a path. That's sort of my ethos of, like, I'm just not taking guys who need an injury, who are an injury handcuff away from being relevant, even if they could smash, just because there are so many options available to us. Again, when the draft closes, we are leaving line 1 power play 1 guys on the table, like, as we exit our draft lobby, just by the nature of how the math works out. So I'll just keep taking stabs at those guys who could truly be like the number 1 scorer on their team.
Yeah, I love that I got Trocheck back to me just to, like I said, capitalize on that bold case. But I do agree that I'm often not taking Lafreniere, and that's primarily because I see him forced up to that 87, 86, 85 range where Panarin goes quite often. And that's driving his draft capital up higher than it probably should be. So when he slips to 93, I don't mind getting a little bit of exposure. You're back on the clock. We did get a couple other things here in the chat that we should get to, but what are you doing here?
I don't take a lot of Gustafsson.
Oh,
We've talked a lot about those reasons, but like 107 in this lobby, I'll take a swing and just pray that this is my 4% Gustafsson and that he helps his team out.
He is just with Korchekov. Like, I think that's fair. And you're in that range already because, I would take Jari, Montembeault, Kemper, everyone that went before him. And he's in the range with Korchekov. I don't think there's anyone else on the board. Yeah. I did actually get asked about Kaprizov the other day, and I pulled up the puck luck projection and I tweeted out whatever it was. I think he could. I think he has 120 point upside. I just don't know, like,
I think it's more likely, honestly. I think it's more likely he has a 65 goal season than, truly competing with like Kucherov on the points stuff. Like Kaprizov is one of the most reliable goal scorers we have in the NHL right now. And obviously he goes in the first round. It's not like people are sleeping on that. But like, it is pretty stunning how on a team who other than him really cannot score, like he just does it year in, year out since day one in the league.
I like, if you're going to bet on him, like if this is for betting purposes, I definitely lean goals over points. Just because I think there's more outs. Like it's not even that, I don't know, more outs is kind of the wrong way to put it. It's like when he gets to that point total, it's probably coming pretty heavily through goals. So I get back to the turn here with a perfect correlation, slipping past ADP, although moving up a little bit, and Charlie McAvoy to go with Pasternak. And I know Charlie McAvoy said he's the smallest D on the team, but he's not going to be little in my books, and I'll take him here to go along. So I have a pretty nice little correlated mix here with Trocheck, Lafreniere, Besser, Quinn Hughes, Pasternak, McAvoy. I like what I'm cooking up here. The only kind of out there guy was Gensel. Was sort of hoping that one of the Tampa guys would get back to me, and I went with Besser over Victor Hedman at the time. So an interesting thing. Let's get back to the chat, though, as we ignore most of what's the deal with defenders and power play one in New Jersey. I mean, we just don't know yet. I'm still thinking it's Dougie's to lose, but I don't know. I mean, I feel like New Jersey truly, I mean, it's Sheldon Keefe. It's a new coach. It's a new, mentality. And like, is Luke Hughes going to be kind of kept out for long? How healthy is Dougie? I don't think we've seen anything yet with him skating. I assume he's good, but I just don't know. And that's kind of why I said on the stream yesterday, like, I would rather take Sider. I think Sider's going to pass him, and he should. But, like, that's why I'm not getting a lot of Dougie. It's because that's kind of the way I look at it. What are you going to say?
Yeah. I do think something worth monitoring is if Luke Hughes is skating with Dougie. I mean, John Marino's gone. We've seen like the Harley Heiskanen pair in Dallas be so good. Obviously, Toronto didn't really have like anyone comparable to play with Morgan Riley, so like we don't really know what Sheldon Keefe would do if he had two highly gifted offensive players who project well as good players. It's not like Luke Hughes is like a defensive liability. He's much bigger than his brother. He's got like that speed and range where like he has the tools to be like a fantastic defensive player as well. Maybe not like Owen Power level defensive acumen, but like, it's very possible that those two guys just play together and they play 28 minutes a night and like, then then it's just a bonanza. So like I imagine it's Siegenthaler still with Dougie, but like there is a chance that Luke Hughes sort of ascends like that Devon Toews role where he'll be relevant regardless of whether he's power play one or not.
Yeah. I agree with that either way. Sorry, I had to go. Oh, sorry. I'm sorry. Oh boy, long one here. Yeah. Okay, that's fine. Yeah. I know this is I think the next point probably. He didn't correct us. So whatever we said last time, the concealer, the consigliere. Rob Thomas is closer to JT Miller than JT Miller is to Nathan McKinnon, and like I do agree with that, but that doesn't mean you have to give up at center. It's like I don't even know if I agree with it entirely. It's just like you can say that like it's like what does a peak week from JT Miller look like comparatively to a peak week from Robert Thomas? And maybe you can find whatever you want to find, but like if you don't have enough to try to compete at center, aren't you still kind of losing? I don't know. I do think it's going to be a big debate because I think that we're going to be starting to move into a new meta of like drafting with people truly drafting terrible teams, don't know what they're doing, more of your, people that come in as soon as the hockey season gets closer, and things will change a bit more than these drafts when we have a lot of really sharp people. But overall, I am trying to be a bit more mindful of taking center earlier. And this draft, I did just get my third through around 11. Eriksson, Trocheck, Lindholm. I think when you don't take one through the first 6 rounds, you should be mindful of getting your last one by the end of round 13 at the latest, and kind of focusing on that depth at wing. As you just said, there's power play one, line one guys, but a lot of those guys are wingers just because there's more of them. So any thoughts on that entire what I just said there?
I think I disagree with the premise of like getting round 16 wings versus I think round 16 centers rock and the round 16 wings kind of suck. It's just more of the other position, defense is one that you can fill out from 13 to 16, no problem. Like you can pick 3 guys there if you really want to, and I would be fine with it. I don't think I agree that Rob Thomas is closer to JT Miller than JT is to Nate McKinnon. I get it. Obviously, they're tiers different to one another, but to me, it's pretty similar of a gap. And like JT Miller on puck luck, he's center 5. Like, it's not like it's not like we're cherry picking here. We're basically taking one of the next best guys. Let's see, he's just behind Hughes. Actually, he's behind Hughes and Eichel. I think he beats Eichel based on the games played that Jay does. But in any case, like he's in that next tier, and like I don't know. I don't really think that taking a guy in the fourth round, like and saying, oh well, he can't beat the first round guy, like that doesn't really shake up to me. I do feel like JT Miller can come a lot closer to McKinnon than Rob Thomas is, and to me that's worth the trade off because center where Robert Thomas goes, I just take Cutter Gauthier. So like who cares? I feel pretty fine about those 2v2s. But yeah, everything's a decision of 2v2s. If you really think that your team's better off by taking, 3 centers in rounds 12, 14, and 16 or whatever, and you upgrade other positions by taking those positions earlier in the draft, by all means, go for it. Like, we can look at last year's data, we can, conceptualize all we want, but again, take the best players at every turn, and you're going to do well if you're right. Like, that's all that matters here. So,
again, like it's kind of like the winning fixes all problems. Like, you can look at any sport and realize that that's just always pretty much true. And picking the best players and winning all the money would fix any problem. Like, I waited on center. Well, did you pick 3 that were really, really good? Yeah, I think it'll be okay. So yeah. And again, that's kind of why it's like, if you look at the pillars, and I think of like a lot of the other sports kind of lose a little bit sight of this. It's like, take the best player at the pick, no matter what. And like, don't worry so much about all the minute details. Don't go down the board 10 picks because of, week 17 or a final schedule. It's like, well, the player outscores the other player by 120 points. It doesn't matter if they played, 7 games or 5 games in the finals. Like, you didn't make it, so yeah, all good to talk about. Any wingers going pretty fast in this one. Anything you're thinking about right now in this lobby in general?
No, I'm feeling pretty happy with how I've played things to this point. Getting Erik Karlsson to go with Sidney Crosby, I think obviously makes a lot of sense. Just getting him at ADP, because the important thing to note from again from that third Best Luck Manifesto article is that the downside of stacking largely comes when you're reaching for players, just because the reaching, even like current value ADP, taking nothing into account for closing line ADP, you do lose a good amount of equity if you're constantly reaching on players. Now, obviously, sometimes you'll just be right, and that'll weigh itself, that'll balance itself out. But on average, the field lost a ton by reaching. So like I'm pretty happy whenever I can get a stack mate who is at or after ADP, just for obvious reasons there, because you're getting the correlation and you're not sacrificing the value. And in fact, you're probably gaining value by getting, combinations, by getting 2v2s that the field just doesn't have access to with your quote unquote better players.
Right.
Let's see. We've got 3 guys ahead of me. They all have multiple defensemen already, so I might be able to. Yeah, I should be able to close off this Gus Forsling, unless DWK is autoing, which he could be. Yeah, this guy might be auto drafting, so I might lose out on my Forsling stack as a result. That sucks.
Wow. Dusty Wolf still going 130. That means I was going to say Wolf doesn't go that early, but I guess he does.
Yeah, he's been soaring up the board.
It just seems crazy he goes before Joey Decord.
DWK showing up for me. Thank you. Yeah. Okay. So yeah.
Yeah.
I need a defenseman. I will take Gus Forsling. Thank you.
So you have Erik Karlsson and Gustav Forsling. That's it. Okay.
Yep. I have Batherson. Let me just grab some Claude Giroux. Don't really have any of him, but he's a guy who I think Cliffy made the argument he could play 20 minutes a night on a team that could be ascending. There's no guarantee he's power play with Batherson, or even on the same line as Batherson. But looking at my options for 7th winger, none of them are great. So I'll just take
Yeah.
I'll take Giroux over, you know, a Michael Bunting, or maybe there's other guys who correlate with my possible selections.
Yeah, I think I cut out what I was saying by Matt Zuccarello take, but I have like none of him. And I kind of looking through some of the stuff of when he was healthy last year. It's like he really only played with Kaprizov, Boldly, and Eric Zanek, and like a few other guys mixed in around him, Rossi, et cetera, later in the year. But it's like, I don't know. Am I really willing to bet on Zuccarello being just completely useless? I don't know. And I have none of him right now. So I didn't mind going up with Eric Zanek, just saying that Zuccarello or whatever, that move boldly.
Yeah.
Actually, Dylan Strome is a really interesting question. There was something I read today that kind of made it seem like that Pierre-Luc Dubois would be with Ovi. And
I mean,
I think I'm just gonna wait.
That's how they did in the playoffs last year. They used Strome separately. They brought up Hendrix Lapierre to play with Ovi in the playoffs. Like that's not a surprise to me whatsoever. But the appeal of Dylan Strome has nothing to do with 5-on-5 play. It has to do with the power play. Like that's, if the power play is anywhere close to as good as it was last year, then Strome is going to be an absolute nuke at, basically undrafted, but like, just thinking through things again, every player who is drafted in every draft is 8.5% owned. If Dylan Strome is 2.5% owned, if he goes in one of every 4 drafts, that to me feels about right. Like he's going to smash if the team is anywhere better than they were last year with a similar power play. Now, there's a very real chance the wheels just fall off for this franchise, despite their reinforcements of, Jake Chychrun. Look what happened to Ottawa when they brought in Jake Chychrun to save the franchise. It didn't go well. But like Matt Roy, he's not one of the Waugh brothers. Matt Roy,
I don't think so. No.
Pierre-Luc Dubois, I'd say brought in Logan Thompson to really keep the ship afloat. I'm betting on it personally staying afloat, but like there's that possibility that it just all crumbles, which I think is why Dylan Strome doesn't really get the respect that last year sort of should have earned him.
There he gets picked. Numi was listening. Yeah, there's a lot of guys I kind of want to take right now. I think I know who I'm going to draft, and I'm going to push goalie one more round. But I took Arturi Lehkonen at 165. He is yet again out there in practice, shooting pucks, looking better every single day. And with my 6th winger in, I'm totally fine with taking a guy that is looking like he might have a chance to start the year in the top 6 in Colorado and potentially power play 1. So lock it in. And then I'm just continuously getting Nick Schmaltz at the end of drafts when I need a winger. And again, these are kind of some of the guys that I'm just like, well, I feel fine with these guys. I feel fine with, taking Jack Quinn, Bjorkstrand, or Tolvanen, whoever you kind of prefer there. I've mainly gone Bjorkstrand myself, but I think there's a lot of wingers at the end. But I do agree that like a Strome, a Hurdle, a Fantilli, and I mean, I'm still drafting Cousins. I know you're, against it. Who the heck is? Never mind. Cooley. Is there any other center other than McTavish? Because we talk about him like every single podcast. Down at the bottom that you might be taking next because you need one more.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not taking Malkin. I'm not taking Malkin next because even though we correlate to Crosby, that the schedule part is, I think, what makes stacking valuable, like intra lineup, but like intra position, I'm not in love with it at a onesie position like center, just because the ideal is that if Crosby has a down week, it's probably partially due to the schedule, and that Malkin obviously is constricted to the same schedule. I'm just going to take Zellweger because I don't know. I don't. The guy after me, I don't think is taking a center, and while it's unlikely Zellweger goes, I might as well just grab it.
I was going to say the guy after needs 2 defensemen. Most likely he's going to grab 2, so might as well get your guy because he goes Darnell Nurse, who I will not have any exposure to personally. Nope. I mean, I don't even think it's inherently wrong. I just think it's like, I think that he'll get phased out over time more often than not. And obviously I have a ton of Rasmus Anderson. So No worries there. So here we go. Matt's big shining moment. Who is he taking at center?
Let's just I don't have, obviously McTavish is an option. I have a lot of those. Kopitar is a good option, but I'm just gonna go Josh Norris. Uh, I don't know. It's a mega Ottawa stack. Technically, it's a third guy in, but like there's not a huge risk, I think, of Norris really siphoning off the upside of any of these guys. And because they're all so late, I don't really care. Um, not a huge concern to like overstack in this situation. But I also just like Josh Norris. I want to get more of him and just pray that he stays healthy for a year, which is obviously unlikely. But if I'm at 70% Josh Norris, I'll feel pretty good about it come puck drop.
Yep. Jack Quinn goes, Bjorkstrand goes. I'm pretty high on Jack Quinn still. Like I'm going to be getting exposure. I definitely understand Tyson Forrester as well at the bottom of the board. One thing that got mentioned to me, I don't even remember where it was. It was somewhere today. I think either on no, it was yesterday. Was sort of the Calgary Flames in general. They have one forward, up to two forwards that get drafted every time, and then you have like Huberdeau, Kuzmenko, who just goes right there. Who I kind of talked about as like this guy just scored 40 goals, and we're just kind of assuming that like he's inherently wrong. Even Blake Coleman was like actually pretty useful last year. 582. He had hits, blocks, shots. 30 goals. Is there any one of these wingers that you're considering right now for the Flames?
I like Huberdeau, and I'm not afraid who knows it. Like I mean, the upside case for him is so
I go
unbelievably
Kuzmenko.
obvious. Yeah, I understand.
Myself, but
I just don't think Kuzmenko's good. So like, yeah, he could score, and obviously, if he's scoring, it's probably thanks to Jonathan Huberdeau. So like, they're intricately correlated with one another. But like, we've seen Jonathan Huberdeau be an absolute difference maker in the NHL. And yeah, he's old and he might suck, but that sort of top tier talent doesn't come around often. And so there is, a point per game player within his range of outcomes for sure. And even then he might not be valuable because he doesn't shoot, blah, blah, blah. But it's slim pickings once you're at wing number 90 or whatever 12 times 7 is.
Yeah. I do agree. Like if you take Kadri, I don't mind going Kuzmenko. I mean, that's the guy that I think I'm gonna end up grabbing. Just a bit of like the goal scoring is where you get the peaks, and if it comes together in the right week, like for many weeks, but he's your last player in, and I think he has the upside to get there, and put up a peak week or two when it all comes together. Definitely has an elite shot, just doesn't use it enough, and it's probably because, like Matt's saying, he's just not as gifted as a player as others. Like you'll notice that the elite shooters, as far as like guys that can score from anywhere, if they can come together with shooting a lot too, that probably means that they're, going to move, that's where you get these top 3 round players. So like what's missing is his skill in general. So it is what it is, but let's see what happens. Do you want to recap this and probably get out of here? I know we wanted to try to keep it around an hour.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think there's much to recap. I don't really want to go team by team. I do want to say though, we have a lot of concurrence. I mean, 14, we've had over 10, I think, for almost the entire episode. So thank you guys for showing out. Hopefully with football, in the holster, just more and more drafts are firing up day over day. I think the lobbies are filling faster, so that's a pretty big impediment, in August. But now, maybe that's a bit less of an impediment if you're trying to get in a bunch of volume. But yeah, every Tuesday around 8:15, 8:30, 8:45, somewhere in that window, you'll find us, just depending on what works best for us that specific week. Through Puck Drop, we'll be here through October 8th. Is it? So like, up until the week before that, we will be here doing drafts. And again, you mentioned it, Stochastic Wednesdays, they're going to do, similar timing. I think they start at 8 on the nose every week, but it's good to support the hockey community. It's good to try and get this contest filled, maybe even fill it early to get secondary contests. And if you're not a fan of the $15 price point, there is a $3 contest as well on Underdog Fantasy. Use code MSP if you've not signed up. You're wondering what the hell we're talking about. It's a great thing. Do you want to go through the rest of these comments, or do you want to go over your team?
Let's service our friends and family first. We
Perfect.
love talking Josh Norris on Underdog, and I know you're talking about the hockey player, of course, and not the football personality. Although I do love that. My all-time best tweet was it was Josh Norris goal from Jake Sanderson. I tagged them both, and they both loved it. At least Jake Sanderson did. Do you get what I'm saying, everybody? Good. What was next? Why do both Carolina goalies get drafted so high? A great starting question. I don't know. I
mean, look
I
around.
was all
Look at
over. Or yeah. Okay. No go. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I think it's just a factor of look at the best teams in the NHL. They all have goalies that are going substantially earlier than Kochetkov and Anderson, and so people say, "Oh, Carolina's going to be good, so I need their goalie." Like because frankly, I don't even know if either of them are draftable, just because there is no world, barring multiple injuries, I think, where one of those guys takes the net and gets 3 starts, 4 starts on a weekly basis. Like they are just the definition of a 1A, 1B, 1C type team. Um, and only 2 get drafted, but I would not be surprised to see a third goalie mix in this year. Just because the front office is too smart. They know the position. They know Freddie Anderson. Anderson's not a spring chicken. He's gonna need some rest. And like they're not gonna give Kochetkov 55 starts. So maybe fair price if they're truly the best team, the best defensive team in the league. But there's a lot of downside just based on volume if we're talking about range of outcomes for those guys. So, but that's why they go so late because
there was.
Yeah, I just don't know if it's late enough.
No, keep going. Yeah, there was a time where I was taking Korchakov in every draft because he was not even like in the ADP pool to start, and he's very, very quickly gone up above guys I just don't really understand the case for, which you just laid out in detail. And again, I kind of make the same case for Dustin Wolf, who continues to rise. And I make the case every podcast for Samuel Harrison being like better. And maybe you could disagree with me and say he's not as good as Dustin Wolf. I just don't get it. Like they love him in Philadelphia. They rode him into the ground last year. And I think that he's going to be back. He's going to be well rested. They still play well in front of him, and he's going to see 55 stars.
If you have quotes on them loving Harrison, I would love to hear them because I do not think Tortorella likes the guy. I think he thinks he sucks. They were just completely blindsided.
I will go back
by Carter Hart.
Yeah, I will go and I will find the quote that Friedman said. He said something about it. I don't know. So, but it doesn't matter.
I'm just remembering.
I don't think it was Tortorella loves his country, and that's
his dogs.
Okay, so he doesn't love him and his dogs. You're right. His dogs. I was trying to think of the other thing that he said he loved the one time. I think
when they missed the playoffs, Tortorella was basically like, "Yeah, we need a save. Like this cannot go on. We need a save. We need a save," because they just kept losing these games that they should have won. And like that was that. They had no one else in net.
Like he was exhausted. I am giving him a pass. I'm giving him a pass. And yes, he was horrendous at the end of the year. Like he blew it big time. And he played it like 77 times. And like, oh, okay, so now they got this big, they have this big goalie to back him up, and they're going to give him starts. And like, did you see the one game he played? He only had one. He got lit up by the freaking Sabres. The Sabres couldn't score. They lit him up. I don't know. Whatever. We can argue all night. It's not going to get anywhere.
We're not going to.
Anyways.
The Tom Olsen bag defending continues. I'm wondering who he's bag defending here, but I have loved. I know we've talked a lot in Discord, and I'm pretty sure every player he's mentioned in the comments is players he has like 40% of. So I just appreciate that from our boy Tom here. But these 2 Calgary notes I think are pretty interesting because to me it's like Huberdeau could be the guy who truly is getting line 1 5-on-5 minutes because make no mistake. Michael Backlund, Blake Coleman are their number 1 and number 2 forwards, in terms of 5-on-5 usage. Obviously, power play is not likely, but then Huberdeau could also be the benefactor of power play time, which is sort of the reason for him. It's not anything to do with his shot rate or rates in general, but it's just he could be a point per game player just based on the minutes he's playing and the sort of usage and exposures he's getting versus Kadri having to lug around Kuzmenko and, a rookie or something like that. But yeah, he notes Harrison. And is he trying to get us to do more work?
number one, I've never watched a single one of their videos. No offense to either of them. I'm sure they're fine, and they get, 59,000 times the viewership we do. So what am I going to say? But like, I don't know how helpful that would be. It's kind of my viewpoint. And also it's in the rankings on Puck Luck is tiers are built in. So you can look at by tiers as well. But I feel like if you're not confident in someone's power play run, they just shouldn't probably be picked before pick 70 at the absolute, probably 80. Like 80 is probably the limit to where they can start at wing to have a little bit of debate, and you kind of see that on the board. I don't know how useful that would really be, where we're just like, I don't know. I don't think it's the same as football, because I do think in the NFL, like, I'm sorry, Matt, I'll let you talk.
No, I'm trying to put together thoughts here, because it's true. I do think a more useful tier series is about talent, because so much of what we are talking about on a show to show basis is, frankly, who are they playing with? Like, what are their shot rates like? How confident are we that their power play won? Because I'm sure we can name tons of players who we absolutely adore that we're just not taking much of in Best Buck. I talked about Brandon Montour, for example, like things like that. He's a bad example, because who really cares about a pick 120 guy? But like, there's a lot of examples of players who we love that just aren't in the best situations. But for my purposes, I'm probably going to replicate a lot of the same sort of formula of content as I did last year over the next month, which is digging into some of my fades, digging into some of my highest exposure players over the next couple weeks. And then sort of some season preview stuff, which is built with like a fantasy spin. I outlined basically for every team what could go wrong, and that was a really fun to read back on. And honestly, if you're looking for stuff to reflect on, that article, my season preview from last year on my Beehive, is a really good one to just sort of look at and laugh at me for a lot of, but also go like, like this guy did see that the Sabres were getting way overdrafted, despite being a Sabres fan who desperately wanted them to do well. And then also, in addition to that, the one thing I'm going to do that's more short form is I'm basically going to dig into a lot of tied ADP players. I'm not looking at the rankings to really have one specific in mind, but like Cutter Gauthier and Gabe Velarde, maybe let's say they're the same ADP within, 1.0 ADP of one another. Just sort of determining, these two players are tied, they play the same position. Who am I taking and why? It's basically going to be a couple pairs of those per short form article, that those are probably going to be quicker than, my standard long pieces that I tend to write. But that's sort of my daily dose of activity. It's not going to be daily, but it'll probably be a couple times a week at least. And maybe I'll get input from Jay, from DJ, from whoever wants to provide input on that player, just as sort of like a guest spot. But that's what you can expect from me at the very least. Maybe DJ will do a tiers video. I honestly don't even know what the hell they did, because I didn't watch anything that they did. But I can sort of imagine what they were doing.
This question about stacking, I think, is like directly your. You went over this in pretty good detail.
Yep.
So that is linked below, and I would just say, yeah, Matt, you can say first. You did.
That is the exact situation that the Best Puck Manifesto Part 3 is written for. Like, those exact sort of questions. We got a lot. I tested a lot of data. I think I used a pretty innovative approach to get at these questions. And I certainly could have a different approach than someone else who takes the same data and maybe comes to a different conclusion. But in general, I do think that overstacking is bad. Like, just full stop. There's really no way around it. The sacrifices you need to make are too much. And I write a lot about why that is, and why I think we're seeing what we see in the data in that third Best Puck Manifesto. So it's all free. Go check it out. DJ said it's noted in the description, so do find that.
I am putting it in the chat right now as well. It just doesn't want to send for whatever reason. Awesome. But yeah, it's like, it's not that good is the short answer. And then there's, how many words did you put? Oh, it won't send. Try again. How many words?
Oh God, it was so many words.
4,000 words.
It's over 4,000 words. Yeah.
So I think it's sent now.
And like 1,000 of them are me at the end writing about the schedule.
Yeah, and I do think, like, I'm making videos, and like I'm trying to, I guess, be more like last year I did every single team and I tried to do like a 1.5 minute preview and they all turned were that helpful. And this year I'm trying to be like, all right, like let's just scratch all that. Let's go division by division and go over all the pairs and talk about what pairs are more impactful than others. And it's like, if you take Kucherov, fantastic, right? You took Kucherov fifth. If you take Pencil with him, whatever. I think you could maybe argue another, but like definitely don't reach. Like that is compounding
Yeah.
problems. And I kind of talked about this yesterday of like if you do something smart, you can continue to do that away from other things. And if you miss on something, like, for example, if you took Kucherov and Gensel goes first, don't now think, well, this team just can't correlate, right? I missed my main. No, just it's a fine. Just get back on track.
All right.
Matt, are
The
you still
answer is
0% on
yes.
Stamkos?
Until he's in the 5th round, I will just not be taking Steven Stamkos. So, yeah.
Yeah, I was going to maybe jump into one of the $3 after this and just kind of hang out, not here, but just draft a couple teams. So if anyone wants to jump in a couple more lobbies, I'll probably be in there.
Yeah,
In the
let's
world. And I think I
wrap
sent
this
the
up.
best book manifesto like 3 times, and we
You
should
did.
wrap up.
It's fine.
Yeah,
Yep.
I will be laying in bed drafting teams, and you're gonna go get mad or something at the TV or whatever you do. And
Yeah, so it's a big day here in the States. I think the answer right below Scotty is for you, but yeah,
oh,
Stochastic is literally a YouTube channel. I'm pretty sure they're just called Stochastic. Let me Stochastic DFS.
it kind of blows my mind. Yeah, it kind of blows my mind that you found us and watched us, and you've like, what's Stochastic? It's like that's pretty cool, actually. Like Stochastic, one of the bigger names in the industry, and Cliffy and Josh are really, really good. And yeah, they're doing best buck drafts, and I just can't imagine they're going to do it Thursday. So I'll probably reach out and double check what they're doing, and we'll see. And then I'm gone all weekend at a music festival, but as we ramp up, there'll probably be more of these kind of like back to back, like double streams and stuff, where some of them I'll be solo, some of them I'll be grabbing people. So expect more double a week. And just like if you ever want to get in a draft and you're wondering if I'm going to be in it, just DM me. Just say like, what's up? I only have 5 of the penalty boxes left. So got to be a little bit mindful because I kind of wanted to save like 3 of them for the final week, but it is what it is.
All right. I think that'll do it. I posted a comment in the YouTube, but it didn't show up on the StreamYard, so I don't know. I linked you to the actual video for Stochastic that's like scheduled for tomorrow. But anyway, you should be able to find that pretty easily if you're interested in this sort of content. So yeah, I've mentioned my Beehive like 7 times, so check that out if you haven't yet. Check out DJ's videos on his channel here. There's not just streams. You've mentioned your content other than streams. And check out Puck Luck. Obviously check out Underdog if you haven't yet. There's more than just hockey. There's football and stuff if that interests you. And follow us on Twitter. I'm at Fake Moods. DJ's at DJ_Mitchell94. Join the Discord. Both those places are where you will find a lot of our sort of takes as far as breaking news, training camp stuff. We'll be on top of it, and dozens of our friends will be on top of it as well in the Discord.
Yep, I added the Stochastic show and it worked now. So go. I will warn you. I feel bad saying this, but if you subscribe, it's not just hockey; it's every single sport, every single day, and you got to be a little bit careful, or you're going to be watching UFC DFS, which I play once every maybe 3 years. Once every 100th UFC fight, and when they have million makers. But yeah, we'll close out. Thanks for joining, Matt. You know what to say. And I'll play our little outro.
Yes. So last thing, if you're on the YouTube, check out the podcast feed. There will be audio there of this, and obviously our in-season content and our season preview content on the Morningscape podcast. And if you're listening to this on the podcast feed, of course, check out DJ's YouTube channel. They will be linked in the description. So with all that said, thank you all for drafting with us. I hope your week 1 of NFL went better than mine. And for Doug, from DJ, from myself, we're officially in best puck draft season, everyone. So thank you. Good luck, and we will see you.